Since the end of the Cold War, the global economic system has been shaped by the hegemony of major powers, particularly the United States, whose dollar has established itself as one of the central pillars of international trade and financial transactions. This status has afforded the United States significant economic and geopolitical advantages, enabling it to influence international dynamics through sanctions, regulations, and sophisticated financial mechanisms. However, this monopoly is increasingly being challenged, not only by emerging powers such as China and India, but also by established players like Russia, who seek to free themselves from dollar domination and redefine their place in the global order. In recent years, this quest for economic independence has been exacerbated by a succession of geopolitical crises and economic sanctions targeting nations deemed hostile by the United States and its Western allies. In this tense context, Russian President Vladimir Putin has addressed recent threats from Donald Trump regarding the use of alternative currencies in international transactions and analyzed the implications of Western companies' departure from the Russian market. His statements, reflecting a strategic vision of the global economy, shed harsh light on ongoing upheavals and structural changes that could reshape the global economic system in the decades to come. To understand the depth and scope of these tensions, it is essential to revisit the remarks of Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, who threatened to impose taxes of up to 100% on countries choosing to turn away from the dollar in their international trade. This declaration, though extreme, reflects the growing concerns of the United States over the gradual erosion of the dollar's supremacy. Since the end of World War II, the US dollar has served as the world's reserve currency, granting Washington unparalleled control over global economic and financial flows. Key commodities, particularly oil, are traditionally denominated in dollars, forcing importing countries to maintain significant reserves of this currency. However, according to Vladimir Putin, this dominance is beginning to erode, primarily due to the misuse of the dollar as a tool for sanctions and economic coercion. Restrictions imposed by the United States, often in the name of defending its strategic interests, have driven many countries to seek alternatives to protect their economies from external pressures and fluctuations. These actions, while perceived by Washington as necessary measures to maintain its global leadership, are gradually backfiring against the system they aim to preserve. By threatening to sanction sovereign nations for choosing to use alternative currencies, the U.S. highlights the global economy's dependence on its currency and inadvertently encourages the emergence of alternative solutions. In his speech, Vladimir Putin described the financial flows generated by the dollar's use as revenue literally falling from the sky for the United States. He emphasized that this unique position allowed Washington to finance massive deficits and sustain high domestic consumption without the same constraints faced by other nations. However, he also warned of the dangers of such a situation. According to him, U.S.-imposed economic sanctions only accelerate the process of de-dollarization, a global trend that could lead to widespread loss of confidence in the dollar as a reserve currency. While this prospect remains distant, it is becoming increasingly tangible as countries like Russia, China, India, and several emerging economies intensify efforts to diversify their foreign exchange reserves and promote their currencies in international transactions. Another central point in Vladimir Putin's speech was the issue of Western companies leaving the Russian market. Since the introduction of large-scale sanctions following the Ukrainian crisis in 2014, and more recently, the conflict in Ukraine, many multinational corporations have chosen to suspend or terminate their operations in Russia. According to Putin, these departures do not reflect a voluntary decision by Russia to cut itself off from Western companies, but are rather the result of political and media pressures exerted by foreign governments. This phenomenon has caused significant upheaval in the Russian economic landscape, but it has also created opportunities for local businesses and Asian players to fill the void left by these departures. Putin also sought to downplay the scale of these exits, stating that around 50% of Western companies chose to remain in the Russian market despite sanctions. This includes strategic sectors such as food production, pharmaceuticals, and consumer goods, where the continued presence of European and American companies illustrates the importance of the Russian market to their global supply chains. Furthermore, he noted that the exit of European companies has resulted in substantial losses for the economies of the European Union, particularly Germany. The disruption of supply chains, combined with the loss of access to stable and affordable Russian energy resources, has led to factory closures and reduced competitiveness of European industries on the global stage. These economic disruptions have been particularly felt in sectors such as metallurgy, chemicals, and automotive industries, where dependence on Russian energy and raw materials was especially high. In contrast, Russia has adapted to this new reality by strengthening its economic ties with Asian, Middle Eastern, and African partners. Chinese, Indian, and Turkish companies, among others, have rapidly invested in niches left vacant by Western multinationals, contributing to a structural transformation of the Russian economy. Regarding the potential return of Western companies to the Russian market, Vladimir Putin has adopted a pragmatic stance. He stated that Russia remains open to cooperation, but that the conditions for such a return have fundamentally changed. Companies returning to Russia could no longer expect to regain the advantages and dominance they previously enjoyed. Having been forced to diversify its economic partnerships and bolster its domestic capabilities, the Russian market is now better prepared to withstand future external pressures. Putin insisted that any return must be based on respect for Russia's strategic interests and recognition of the economic transformations that have occurred since their departure. Finally, Vladimir Putin concluded his analysis by emphasizing the importance of economic and political sovereignty in an increasingly polarized world. He criticized European countries for their dependence on American decisions, accusing them of sacrificing their own interests to a geopolitical strategy dictated by Washington. According to him, this dependence has led to a loss of strategic autonomy for Europe, which manifests as economic stagnation and a decline in its global influence. For Russia, however, this period of upheaval has represented an opportunity for transformation and resilience. Despite sanctions, the country has leveraged emerging dynamics to strengthen its infrastructure, develop technological capacities, and diversify its sources of growth. Putin called for collective reflection on global challenges and advocated for an international economic system based on cooperation, mutual respect, and multipolarity. In conclusion, Vladimir Putin's speech provides a compelling glimpse into the ongoing transformations in the global economic landscape. By denouncing the abuses tied to dollar hegemony and highlighting the opportunities emerging from current crises, he presents an alternative vision of a more balanced global economic order, where each nation could aspire to greater autonomy and sustainable development.